Hello and welcome to Tournament Poker Project, all the way from Essex. My name is Jon.
And I'm Tain.
Also from Essex. And we are two recreational poker players. And this is our journey to become masters of poker so we can go and smash the World Series of Poker one day. And just go and play in Vegas and just teach them all how to do it.
Yeah.
We're not professionals at the moment. We are very much on the learning curve, and as such, we don't always get it right. If you've got any comments about our thought processes or things we're mentioning, please do post them in the chat. We'd love to hear. So what we generally do is analyse hands. So, Tain, should we jump straight in?
Yep, so this is a hand fresh off the press. This is a hand I played late last night, well, early this morning. So I was up at 1 a.m. UK time. I thought I entered a PKO, two PKOs, thinking what normally happens when there's like 3,000 runners is I managed to get 4, 5, 6 bounties if I'm lucky, and then crash out before the money, or it doesn't really matter if you hit the money. But on this one, albeit for the $1 tournament, annoyingly, I managed to get up to the last 25. We are here at the moment. So I've outlasted, I'm the top 1% of the field. But the other side is that I'd spent most of the last 1,000 runners, one of the top 10 stacks. And I'd been playing that stack, what I would say, very well. I hadn't collected many bounties, though, up until probably about 5-10 hands before this. And then I'd knocked out 2 or 3 people who had collected lots. So there were some people who had obviously knocked out 10 people, 15 people, and I'd only knocked out 3, but I'd collected whopping money off them. Like, well, not whopping, but I was one of the top earners at that point from the bounties that I'd won.
Tain, firstly, congratulations, because going that deep in such a huge tournament is really great work, and I think it's a sign of how far we've come. To go that deep, 2,300 runners, and you're in the top 25. That's incredible. Well done.
Cool. Yeah, and it was looking good at this point. I kept, even as a PKO, and the money you win doesn't mean much, and we'll get onto that because that's actually really important to the hand. I was looking over my shoulder at the final table and where the money starts getting decent. I mean, it only went up to like $100, but when you've only played $1 to be in there and you'd had a lot of fun, you're thinking, if I come away with $100 on top of that, that's pretty good. That's good bankroll money. I felt I'd played good.
100 buy-ins. That's pretty impressive.
Well, but this hand, this little gem, and it's not much of a gem. There's only one decision that I need us to ponder, really. This was the start of my demise. This is,
all right.
I might win it. Possibly. What if I win? No spoilers. This is the start of me winning everything. Sorry about that. So basically, at the table we're at, for the most part, I'd had the measure of the players that were small stacked, and they knew that, and most of them were playing with their cards face up. But thankfully, in this hand, that was kind of an irrelevance. So the person who's immediately under the gun, I believe, they were folding to anything apart from their big hands and then shoving. And sometimes some of the other players were a bit naff and they'd picked them off and they'd doubled up. 1 or 2 of the big stacks. Just looking around the table, actually only one of the big stacks, which is under the middle position 1. They were fairly good. They were a little intimidating at the table because not only did they have a stack that would hurt my stack, but they also were fairly good with it. They weren't throwing it around, making irrational moves. The player on the button, so I'm sitting here with 98 big blinds, which for this stage of the tournament's very good. We are playing 4,500, 9,000 blinds with a 1,400 ante. It is 8 max. It is a PKO tournament, so some of the bounties are pretty decent, although I put it through a tracker that doesn't actually show what the bounties are at this stage. My bounty was up to about $10, which for a $1 tournament's a lot. I think the villain was on about I under the gun +1. They're one of the villains. They were on about $5, and the one on the button was just below me on about $9. So I'm sitting massive. I got 98 big blinds. The person under the gun +1, who's the first of our villains, they're sitting on 50 big blinds, so they're comfy. Not really. They don't really need to do much. They've only got enough chips to take out 3 people at the table, and they're covered by the other 3. So we're 7-handed, and they can't really do much because the 3 big blinds, the 3 big stacks, sorry, are pushing people around as they should be. They're attacking these middle stacks, knowing that they're not obligated to make a move just yet. Whereas the smaller stacks, we're waiting for them to push and then call him rather than pushing them around. But the person who's sitting on the button, who's the only one with a stack anywhere close, like significantly close to mine, they're sitting there with just shy of 95 big blinds, about 94, 95. They were playing terribly, really bad. So they were playing really well for the first half of the game. They were pretty decent.
And what can you expand on? What exactly was your observations that made you think they're playing bad? What were they doing wrong, do you think?
Well, so they were playing all right. They were entering the right pots. They were making good raises, they were just playing as you'd expect someone in a middling stack. And then they won a big pot, went all the way up to about 120 big blinds, and they just got drunk. They started calling everything. So I've got a stat from my poker tracker that says
calling as well.
Yeah, they voluntarily entered the pot 37%, and I think 20% of that was since they got a big stack, and they just entered almost every pot, and they didn't know when to call, they didn't know when to fold. They thought that just by shoving a flop, they'll probably hit run and roll. I don't know what they were thinking. Maybe they got greedy looking for the bounties, but yeah, I was worried about how erratic they were, but
yeah,
I weren't worried that they'd outplay me. So I just needed to be a bit astute and work out what's going on.
Yeah. They still might have better cards, and it sounds like they're generally going to be in the pot till the end with you if they're calling everything. But I guess you can reduce your bluffs, increase your value betting range, something like that. That'd probably tackle that type of player. It's difficult though, isn't it? Whenever there's something like that at the table, you feel like, oh my God, yeah, come on, surely I can get chips off you. But you've still got to wait for the perfect spot. And it might not come. And it might not come until they've been kicked out of the tournament and some other lucky buggers had all the chips.
Yeah. So that's the state of play.
Yeah, perfect.
Entering into the pot, I'm in the big blinds, and I look down at the ace of spades, 9 of clubs. Okay, so my first feeling here is on the big blind, I would normally, and I'm going to really put that in italics if you can see that on a podcast, I would normally be playing this in a very, very specific way, which would be raising if I feel I can win the pot there, or at least define my hand against a player that I can get away from it pretty easily. But I don't really like ace-9. I think it's a real sticky hand. It doesn't make any straights on its own.
It's a defending hand. You do like to defend big blind with it, but if it's an under the gun or the under the gun +1 open, then it's like, yeah, I'll call. But an ace hits the flop and they start betting and bet all the way. Do you just call it down? There's a good chance they've got a better ace. But
yeah. But yeah, not a big fan of it, but all the same, I'm in the big blind, so I'm committed anyway, and I am still massive. So ace of spades, 9 of clubs, under the gun folds, goes round to the first villain, and they do a standard free big blind raise. Now,
because this is 7-handed, they're actually the low jack position, aren't they? So although it's under gun +1, there's only kind of you and 4 others to act after them.
Yeah, got him. Low jack, that's an easier thing to say. So we got low jack, sticks in 3 big blinds, and that's very standard. But the thing that's really interesting here is I've only been playing with them for 25 hands, but they have done next to nothing in that time. They've basically entered maybe 1 or 2 pots, 2 pots they've entered, and they folded both of them. So they've very much been one of the victims of the 3 big stacks kind of pushing him off. So I'm free betting quite a big percentage of my hands, and they're the ones that are just folding it. And I knew that. So when they've raised it three big blinds from the low jack position, I think they're only playing a couple of hands there. I think they've spent 25 hands capping their range to the top, very, very top.
They've got the premium pairs and maybe ace king, possibly ace queen. Yeah.
I'm also very conscious that there's no good reason for them to be doing this move at this point. They don't need to get chips. They're sitting pretty on 50 big blinds.
Yeah.
Also, they've got in the worst positions 2 of the big stacks. So they've got me on the big blinds looking to defend, and Wild Boy or Girl on the button, also with 95 big blinds sitting behind him. So
yeah.
I really am putting him on a couple of hands.
I mean, if this guy's a thinking player, he's got to be thinking this wild guy, as you describe him, on the button, he's probably going to call or raise, and he's going to have position on you no matter what. He's got it. That just strengthens his hand even more. That just tightens his range up even more, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so we move around. We get two folds, goes to the button.
Okay.
They call, and they do call. They were calling most pots at this point, so I had nothing to worry. They were playing with probably 70% of their range. They had some folds in them, but then every maniac does. Yeah, I mean, just to.
So we're not worried about his flat call there. It doesn't mean anything. He could just have anything. He's got a massive range. Okay.
Yeah, but it also means at this point, seeing both these actions, I felt there was absolutely no value in raising. If anything, no. I don't mind capping my hand. I'd be just calling here with aces because I kind of want to keep them both in, because I'm going to get stacked by the person with an extremely strong hand. He probably can't fold it, and I would definitely get stacked by a Mr. Loose person who I'm playing passively, so he thinks he can walk over me and take all my chips.
You know what? And I know this is probably not GTO, but I think I could find the fold here. I think I could even just throw away my ace 9 offsuit with someone that's just playing that, the tightest top of his range, with his open there. What unless you're going to flop ace, top 2 pair or 2 9s hit the board, and that doesn't happen enough to make winning 50 odd big blinds off of him worth it.
Yeah. My feeling on whether I should fold is it is a knockout tournament, so I am incentivized to stay in pots that perhaps I would otherwise exit, because survival is not too much of an issue. I cover them almost 2-1 in chips, so I can afford to lose to them, lose half my stack. I can't afford to lose to the big blind, to the button, but I feel that I'd have a read on that before it got dangerous.
No, fair enough. Yeah, that makes sense, because you got the bounty you could win, and you got to be in it to win it, right?
Yeah, I also feel that the villain, the first villain, the nit, could get faults. Like, so you're sitting there, let's say they're sitting there with aces, and the flop does come out 2, 3, 4 diamonds, and they've not got a diamond. I think they're folding that. I think they're nitty enough that they just say, okay, I waited for aces and it happened, so what can you do?
Yeah.
The turn comes and it makes 4 to a diamond, something like that. I feel that there's enough hands that I can represent that make up the shortfall in equity here. Okay. Plus the fact that they've got a bounty that I can potentially take puts extra pressure on them, that they can never put me on a decision that upsets me. Well, I say that, and then they do exactly that.
Do. You know what? Fine, but you've got this crazy player on the button in the hand as well. So even if you're, if you were heads up with this guy that had opened, I could understand that even if he's sitting there with pocket aces on the right flop, you could get him off of it. You could just go really hard, like just make it so uncomfortable for him. Just represent whatever's out there and just get him off it with crazy big betting. That sounds like it could be possible, but the problem is you've got this crazy button player who, once you start representing, he's just going to start splashing and calling you. And the only way to win this really is, like you say, to either to get lucky and hit a monster or to represent one. And it sounds like this guy on the button's going to call anything. So seeing as most of the time to win it, you're going to be bluffing, representing something big, but getting called by the button. It just makes it a really difficult dynamic. And seeing as you're so deep, I don't know, I think I could just fold this and go sod it. I'll wait for a better spot. Wait for the low jack to not be in the hand because he's just too tight.
Well, just let me develop on the buttons play, because even though he was playing erratic, the weakness of his play was the thing that was really obvious. If I give you the example, he's entering 37% of the pot. So that, and that most of that was made up since he got drunk on chips. So he, at this point, he's entering 70-80% of chip pots. His pre-flop raise is about 20%, so it's probably about right. But he's never free bet, zero. Out of every opportunity, he's never free bet. Wow. So that gives you an indication he's calling everything. He's folded to C bets about 60% of the time, and then folded to overall folded to free bets almost every time. So he's waiting. He's calling, maybe doing C bets. He's doing C bets often, and that's the end of it. If that's not worked, he gives up. He really is playing too much of a range, because he's then got to give up, because your 3-8 with two aces out there is just not going to work. It's not going to wash. And he'd gone from 120 down to 90 so quickly, and it was just through idiocy, really. It's like, well done. Okay. Stop chasing it. I think one or two of these villains he doubled up. Anywho, right, I digress. So I've talked myself into it. I'm just calling. I feel that I can read the player to the left of me, and the villains, I think they'd make it obvious. I think I'd be able to get away unless it's a real unfortunate spot. Cool. So then we get a flop.
Nice flop for your hand.
It is, isn't it? It's seven of hearts, 6 of hearts, 8 of clubs. So
open-ended.
I'm sitting there with ace of spades, 9 of clubs.
Yeah, I like this.
And on this flop, I've got an open-ended, potentially an ace. If I imagine that it's not a full-on block, but I am blocking aces, so it means that the villain's more likely to be holding kings, maybe queens. So I've got a nice part of this board. The other thing I thought when this came out is neither of the villains are going to have this as a significant part of your range, even though the person on the button has everything in their range. So they really could.
But he could literally have anything. So he doesn't connect specifically with this too much. He just, he misses most bolts, doesn't he, really?
Yeah. But I do also think the other villain's just playing with overcards.
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing. We know that we're drawing, and at the moment the other guy's got to speak with an overpair. That's what it feels like it must have.
Well, looking at our hands, according to our range, 7-6 is in our range, 7-8, 6-8, all the other overcards, 8-7-6s.
9-10 as well. 9-10's out there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, possibly because I'm on the big blinds and I've just called into it. 9-5, 5-4, they're all in there. There's 2 hearts out there, so every single suited heart is a part of my range. There is tons. And if I do assume that the ace is a blocker, it does still leave the ace of hearts out there. But again, if I had the ace of hearts for a backdoor, it would be within my range, and it would give the villain more pause for thought if they haven't got an ace of hearts, if that makes sense. So if the villains, whatever the hand the villain has got, if we assumed he's got aces, kings, queens, if the ace of hearts isn't a part of that, it's a tiny extra consideration that if I have got that, I'm going to be even more emboldened. But all the same, what would your move be here?
Well, so we've got the open-ended. We've got the ace as the overcard as well. So we've got, 12... No, what am I talking about? 11 cards to hit twice. We've got half a chance of winning this, unless the guy's got pocket aces and he hits a trip ace, but that's unlikely. We block the ace. So it's a tough one. I don't think I want to inflate the pot just yet. I think I'm checking with the intention to call because it's multi-way. If it was heads up, I think I would be happy to get some chips in against the villain, like the opener, put some pressure on it, make it look like we've already hit our straight, and then on the turn we could go, if he just flat calls, we're certain he's got that over pair, and then we could represent having already made a straight by going really big potentially. But it's multi-way. I think it's a bit risky to try and steal it right now. I would probably check.
Well, my reasoning was different. You might be surprised to hear. Now, there was a reason I've donked. So not only is my range strong at this point, so with all of the best hands there, I should want to inflate the pot. I should want to start building a stack because we're quite deep. I want to be trying to bring the stack to pot ratios down so that I can get it all in. If I have got 9-10, I need to at least try to overcome the stacks, and I need to make up for my poor position. So I've raised it a bit bigger. Plus, I felt that if I check, I'm almost guaranteed, if not 100% guaranteed, to be raised, which could also then be re-raised by the button. And then I am in a position where I think I'm folding, even though I probably got an extremely strong hand with a lot of equity. And I didn't really want to be in that position. If I small bet, I don't think that would achieve anything that a check wouldn't have achieved, because we're still assuming that the villain's got some kind of overpair or at least an extremely strong hand.
Yeah.
Let's just say they were playing ace queen or ace king. It could be the clubs or the hearts. It could, so at which point they've got a doubly strong hand that also blocks me from improving with my ace. So a big bet here is both of I've got the nuts in this hand, and I know that I've got the nuts compared to both villains, but also as a block. A big bet is much less likely to be raised, so that's my opportunity. So, for instance, if we're saying that the villain's got kings, a raise in this position will give them enough pause to just call, and it's for a lot less chips. Yeah, and it's for a lot less chips that I could face with what could have been an inevitable bet and then raise from the two of them. Okay. So this was it. So I've put this as a bet. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. I might need to look into it, but I was happy with that. And I'll be honest, I still am happy with that. Yeah. I'm out of position, and this is my best chance to not pick up the pot, but to block worse action, which is inevitable. It's the most. I felt this allowed me to realise my equity, which I had at that point, that any other move puts me in too much of a tight spot that I need to fold. So I raise. And then obviously, as you can imagine, the absolute worst happens. And the person who I didn't want to raise me smashes all their chips in. Huge overbite. So the pot is just shy of 11 big blinds, and they've whacked in 47 big blinds.
Who's this? Oh, it hasn't shown up on mine. Is it the opener?
Yeah. So I'm not sure why that's not coming through.
It probably is a delay. It's fine. So,
but yeah. So the villain, the one who's playing in the low jack, shoves the entire rest of their stack in. Oh dear.
Yeah. Then it's like a 50-50.
Yeah. And thankfully, the button faults.
Yeah.
And this is the spot that I sat there and I really spent a long time.
Well, you've got. All right. So let's assume that if you make your straight, you've won the hand. Okay. So you've got 4 5s, you've got 4 10s, so you've got 8 twice, so you've got 16 outs there. If you hit your ace, that's probably a win as well, unless he's got the pocket aces, but he's probably got pocket kings because you've got an ace. And if an ace hits the board as well, it's so much less likely he's got pocket aces. So you could say that if an ace hits, you've also won. So that's another 3 twice. That's 6 plus 16. You've got 22 out of roughly 45. So you've got about a 50% chance of winning it. It's, there's already chips in the pot. Even if there was 0 in the pot, it's still a 50, pretty much a 50-50. Chuck your chips in. Mathematically, this is a call.
Yeah. And that's it. So basically, the other side of it that really just edged me over was I didn't know where to fall on it. I knew I was behind. Like my ace high is never winning at that point, but I just knew that they had but let's be clear, I knew what hand they had, and just to go ahead, they did have kings. And my decision at that point was, is that risk of quite a big part, half my stack, worth chasing for their bounty? Because the thing that pushed my decision up at the end is that because it is a knockout tournament, a progressive knockout tournament, even though we're 20th out of 2,300 people, the payout structure is awful. You don't get anything of any tangible value. I was already above in bounties than something like 6th place. So, you know what I mean? It meant nothing. Like,
It's all about knocking people out, isn't it?
Yeah. And I thought, this is the best chance I've got of earning a decent extra pay. Not the best chance. I had enough chips that I could have taken out a lot more smaller stacks, but there were a disproportionate amount of chips at this table, which made it a lot harder. So my poker tracker tells me the average stack at this table is just shy of 480,000 in our stacks, but the average stack on the whole everyone's table as a whole was only something like 280,000. That shows you how much of the chips are at this table. Most of them, sitting in front of me, thankfully. Well, were. But and you think that was you're on board that was I know I'm behind and I know I'm probably going to lose this more often than not. But
just half. I think half the time you're going to lose it, or a bit just under half the time, just over half the time you'll lose it. But yeah, I think you had to do it, didn't you? Really?
Yeah.
I can't see a world where. I mean, no, that was definitely that was a call. You had to do it by that point.
Yeah, and I mean the villain, I can't fault them. I think they played everything they should. I think the shove was maybe a bit too risky for them, but maybe they felt that they had enough chips in the middle that they just wanted to win and deny me equity for the rest of the chips. So I think there is a lot of value in denying me equity there. The board is awfully connected, and getting folds at that point is probably not the worst thing. I mean, just for the listeners, the board came out 7 of hearts, 6 of hearts, 8 of clubs, which is what I decided to call on with my essentially just the 9 of clubs, but also I knew the ace was there. And then the turn came a 6 of diamonds, and just to rub salt in the wounds, I hit my 9 of hearts come on the river, which paired my 9s, but that's useless when your opponent's got kings. And they started the hand with king of hearts, king of diamonds, so they were kind of playing a backdoor to the second nuts, but that's a bit of a long shot. I think they're playing 2 overcards, and they knew they was playing 2 overcards, and they also knew that they were already beating me. So yeah, I think I was quite happy with my play. It was the only risk that I took up till that point that had that kind of significant impact. It half my stack. There were times that I was up and down a little bit, but it was never to the point that I was absolutely on the line and making a probably less than 50-50 decision, chasing their bounty rather than chasing what was up to that point pretty good play. One thing I would say at this point is just how significant their bounties were. Like, they really were just so much more than anything else. I was trying to work out whether it was worth playing further knockouts in this way, where instead of chasing the bounties in the early stages in any possible way, and this might be what O'Kearney says in his book PKO, GTO PKO, I don't know what it is. All the same, what O'Kearney says in his PKO book, it might be that he says ignore the first 3/4 of the tournament, because when you get to the last 100, that's when you really want to start peeling off these bounties and really chasing them, because they've actually got a significant amount. And when you look at me, what did I take home? $18-19 in bounties. That's a big amount for a $1 tournament where only 50p, 50 cents goes into the bounty pool. I mean, that's huge. So yeah, that was it. I was quite proud of that. The other one I didn't get so deep in, and it was a $5 tournament. So I was looking down the barrel at a massive possible, I think it was a 10k guarantee. So I think the top prize was a couple of foul, but I didn't get there. But again, good couple of bounties late stages of that tournament, was much more than I would have won if I'd have clung on for extra places. So I do enjoy these PKOs, but the thing that's slightly annoying is if I didn't enjoy them, they're so prevalent. Like everyone loves them so much that
I know.
Two out of three tournaments.
I'm not a massive fan at the moment. I've got to say, I think it's because it's like I'm trying to master the whole like mechanics of each stage of the game, the different stack depths, the different levels, and the gears that you need to change at certain times. And I'm kind of trying to ingrain that in my mind. And the PKOs are very different. And it's it's like when I accidentally started playing a Omaha game the other week. Did I tell you about that?
No.
And like suddenly you get dealt, is it Omaha? Like PLO, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then suddenly like I got dealt 4 cards. It was like, oh, what is this? Like what have I done? So I had to quickly Google the rules. And then I done all right actually. It was but obviously I didn't really know things. I kept thinking, oh, I've got a great hand. It's like, hang on though. And I was trying to work out the different odds, and it was like, oh, you know what, this is just messing me up. I'm never playing this again.
It'd be fun though. It's very different dynamics, but it's because it's got enough going on that Texas Hold'em has going on. So if we wind back right back to the 80s, maybe, where limit was king, it weren't erratic enough. A good maths game meant you always had an edge, and I think pot limit Omaha, if I'm not mistaken, is the edge is not skewed in the favor of the pros anywhere near as hard. So the good players have an edge, but not bad players, learning players, people that are trying to improve, people that are getting lucky, have a nature. They have a stake in the game, and it can be fun.
Right. Okay.
And it's exactly the same as Hold'em is. Did I tell you about my biggest ever online win? I probably have. I'll tell everyone about 1,000 times.
You have told me this when you accidentally joined that tournament.
Yeah.
What was it?
Yeah, just I didn't realise I'd entered a massive 300, 400 person limit tournament. It was quite a big tournament, like $20 or something to enter. Oh. And I was just like, I hate this, and I just almost went all in every other round. I won. I just
you won the tournament.
Took out hundreds of people. I was just being silly. At some points, I settled down and I tried to play properly, and it weren't working. So I was like, I hate this. I just want to get it over and done with. And I won. And the person I was playing against.
What was the price there? Do you remember?
$450.
Oh mate, that's crazy.
I mean, that does tell you that I've never had a massive win. Like, and that's for some people that's below their minimum buy-in. So we're working.
The biggest win I ever had was actually not since I've been studying. It was when I was younger, and I used to just play drunk online after a Friday night out, and I'd gone in for some tournament or other, and I remember coming 4th and won $1,100, because I remember first prize was like big, and I was like, I was still chuffed. I was still chuffed with 1,100, but that was just in the midst of playing and spending a lot of money on poker, and not really playing it to master the game, but just kind of having fun, throwing money about.
Yeah, I think you can tell, probably the same for you, that where we were at with our poker game in them days was I immediately withdrew it and went to the pub. Like the next day, I was down the pub spending my 400 quid, getting heavily drunk. Woohoo!
Those were the days.
Yeah, it was indeed.
All
Good
right.
stuff.
Well, have we got time for one more?
Yeah, I can do that. Just to say one thing, Joe, like you're saying about where you're learning to, get the mechanics of the game and improve your basic poker skills and everything. I don't know if I'm doing it wrong. One thing I'm enjoying about PKOs is the element of some players are so exploitable, but I want to be able to differentiate between an exploit and what's actually a good play, but with a different game dynamic. Does that make sense? They've made a move that seems silly, but actually there's a real solid reason for that, compared to someone who just doesn't know what to do when they've got a big stack, for instance. They just think they just raise everyone.
I actually think that's a kind of really prevalent point, because sometimes I'll be in a tournament and just that you think, what is this guy doing? But then you realise, this guy's really adjusting for the guy sitting next to him who's in a lot of pots with, who is playing really badly, and he's trying to exploit someone, and in exploiting him, he's doing seemingly crazy moves, but actually, they're not that crazy. They're just crazy if you were playing him. But the person he's, trying to exploit himself is kind of justifies these what seem like weird plays.
So as my little speech there was laying up the next hand, which again is from a PKO tournament. I'm just quickly reading up on my notes so basically the villain in this one, I had tagged as what I thought was a better player, was the better of the others. And this is a point that I want us to talk about before I really crack in, whereby the reason I thought they were good, I think we're playing fairly early. Yeah, we're only at 50 and 100, so we are really early in the tournament. We're all sitting around. I mean, what villain are we playing? So yeah, the villain's sitting there with 42 big blinds. I'm sitting there with 47 big blinds. I'm in the big blinds, but the villain's to my right, so I've got the benefit of they've been sitting with me for 35 hands now, and I've got position on them pretty much every time. And I've been watching their play. I've been trying to pick up on their maneuvers. What I found in two previous hands is I couldn't put them on quality play because it had never gone to showdown, but they made me feel uncomfortable in the right places. So their action was the kind of action I didn't want them to have made. And it's like, oh, you've done the exact thing. I made a certain bet hoping for either a shove or a fold, and you haven't. You've just min raised me, and it's the thing I was, or something like that. And it was just that's. Gotcha. It's almost like they were giving me some fault. But as we go through this hand, I couldn't understand where it ended, and I'll get to it quite quickly because there's not a huge amount of action until it gets close to the end. So I'm on the button. Big blind, sorry, excuse me. I'm sitting there with a monster. I've got a king of hearts, king of spades. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4. There's only 5 of us at the table for some reason. Not sure why this early in the tournament. We get folds all the way around to the button, which is the villain. So they min raise, which from the button, I would at this stage of the tournament would normally be raising more, because the big blind is just too incentivized to call with anything in this position. So that should mean that they're doing that with a stronger hand, but then you shouldn't be raising per the strength of your hand. So they were never getting me off any hand at that point anyway. Get a fold from the small. I've then raised it min back. And that was basically, I thought they'd raised it so little. I wanted to build the pot a little bit, and I knew they'd call that. And I'm like, no, we are going to put some chips in the middle. I never for a second thought they'd fold. I was hoping they might say, all right, fine, let's re-raise you again, and we could see where it goes. But I was unhappy with it. I weren't going to re-raise any more than that. I would normally just call that, because I feel that I'd get too many folds for what should be value. I'd normally just call in this position, but I did a min raise just because I was a bit upset with how little they'd raised the pot with their steal. Like, that steal was never going to work, and they do call. So we now have 8.5 big blinds in the pot. I'm sitting in the big blind with king of hearts, king of spades. The villain has got 38 big blinds back, so I've got them covered by 6 big blinds, which is nothing. So we're fairly even stacked, but I can knock them out and I can take their bounty. And quite a horrible flop comes out. So we've got jack of diamonds, 8 of diamonds, 6 of diamonds, monotone, and it's jack high. It's all messy. It's the exact kind of flop the big blind should be. The button should be quite happy to see. But also the big blind, I don't think the button's got necessarily much advantage over me. The fact that I did free bet, albeit a tiny silly min raise free bet, I don't even know if you can call that a free bet, but it is officially, does mean that I think the button has the better of the hands here. Don't know, it's kind of a bit iffy. It's a bit unusual. The fact that I've made this unusual free bet,
I think his range probably does.
Yeah, you think he's got range advantage?
I think he's probably got range advantage, but you're at the very top of your range, so it almost doesn't matter. I would say you're probably ahead most of the time at the moment.
Cool. So, as much as I want the pot bigger, and I agree, I thought I was ahead, I also don't want to go building a huge pot when it's probably one of the worst flops I could see. It's not the worst, but it's pretty bad because I've got no diamond. Yeah. I don't even have the ace to block, and I don't have the ace diamonds. It's now not overly pretty, as well as the other stuff. Eights and sixes are both in his range. There are sort of straight draws that they could be having at this stage that would easily beat me. So anyway, I raise. That is most likely going to be my 30% button that I clicked.
Yeah, I can agree with that. What you're trying to achieve by the raise? Are you trying to get him? Is this a value bet? Is it a defensive? You don't want him to go too big.
It's a value bet. Value bet without committing too many chips. Like, basically, if he does come back at me, I can call the bets without being too worried. If I committed, say, pot, let's say I raised it pot because I feel that I am going for value. If he then re-raises me, I'm probably going to have to fold. Whereas my third of a pot bet, 30% bet, if they come back at me with another 50% bet, I could probably call that and see how it progresses. And it's the kind of bet where if they're taking a stab, I don't think they've got enough left in their stack to follow that up for future streets. So I can take a bit more confidence in checking it back to them, because if they have the cojones and they do commit their entire stack on a bluff, well, they did a good job there, because there's quite a high risk that they're betting into a monster. And if they've got it, or they've got an extremely strong draw, my kings ain't that great anyway. So as much as I might through gritted teeth, I'm probably making the right move folding. So that was my feelings anyway. So that was my 30% bet. Goes round, just a call from the villain, which is a mixture. That left me with real mixed feelings again. So as I said, I thought the villain was a better player. I don't know how good they might have been, but they did make me feel awkward. And that kind of call was not a bad thing, because it means the pot is getting bigger and I'm getting extra value. But it's what I would do if I'd hit my flush.
It is, but it's also what I would do if I was one diamond away from the flush.
Yeah.
So it's kind of both. So I do get that, like that. If you've got the nut flush already, you probably would call that, just hoping that we continue to bluff at it or keep betting with. Maybe we've got one diamond in our hand Or maybe we've even hit a lower flush. You never know. So yeah, I could see that his flat call there might be I've got a monster already, but it could also just be I've got the ace of diamonds. I want to try and hit my nut flush.
Yeah, and the thing that I was feeling at this point is that the call, there was no bluff with it. So unless they're being extremely tricky and trying to set up like a 2-street move, they're floating here to attack me on the next street because they feel my 30% bet weren't a value bet. And the other side, I didn't even say this before, I would bet 30% if I had the flush or if I was drawing to the ace of diamond with the ace of diamonds in hand. In any of that, both the draw, already have it, or if I had some other kind of really strong hands but not the flush, I'd probably be betting about the same size. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but I feel that they'd have no information on me betting small as means I'm weak. Like I bet that they'd probably see me bet that quite a lot at this point. So anyway, we move on. Just a call. I feel that they've not tried to bluff at anything. So yeah, next card, probably even worse. If that weren't the worst flop, then I'm almost certain this is the worst turn it could possibly have been. So King of Hearts, King of Spades, looks like a lovely sexy hand to be hitting, and the 5 of diamonds comes on the turn. So we have now got Jack of diamonds, 8 of diamonds, 6 of diamonds, and the turn is a 5 of diamonds. There is straights, flushes, straight flushes.
I mean, the straights are just going to check this down because there's 4 diamonds on the board. Weaker diamonds are going to probably check it down. But I think you just need to. You could take a stab at this, but he's called. There's too many times he's got a decent flush now, or he already had it. And I think if he had the baby flush on the flop, he wouldn't have just called. He'd have wanted to protect just in case another diamond hits and suddenly your lonely King of Diamonds and you're holding, for instance, beats him. But yeah, to me, I think we just got to check this down and see what happens. We might call a small bet or maybe we fold.
Yeah, I mean, I bet. My feeling on this is that when there's 4 diamonds to the boards, like it's complete monotone, I just have to find out where I'm at. And I am so in the dark here that what I've bet was a tiny, so what percentage? Again, it's a third pot. So it can continue in my aggression, but it continue in it for essentially the smallest amount. So yeah. I kind of wanted to feel like I was still value betting as desperately as I could. Like I can't check because they're never ever gonna bluff at that kind of board. So I have to try to get value, and if they fold, which they almost certainly will, if they'd have called me, they probably would have had a diamond, I guess. But I have to try and get some value, I guess. But
if this is a value bet, what hands that you beat are they really going to be calling with here?
Oh because no, at this point. I see what you mean. So it depends on the strength of my flush. So if I was repping value, then it depends on how strong. Like if they're sitting there, for instance, with the 4 of diamonds, I could easily be spamming into them with the ace of diamonds, and I feel they'll be calling all day. There's the 7 of diamonds.
In which case, this is a bluff. In which case, this is a bluff.
But yeah, at the moment, this is a whole. Yeah, I'm playing this as a bluff. I'm specifically betting because I feel that whatever action the villain takes, I'd be able to read what they've got. I can't see anyone making any kind of move here. If they call, I'd imagine they've definitely got the flush at some point. And then I've only committed 4 big blinds, and that is 100% I'm dead. And I think it was worth the cost for the potential that they haven't got any diamonds. And even though they could probably see through my bet and think, there's no chance you're betting in there if you've got the ace of diamonds or something like that. So what are you going to do? Bet back at me and find out you got it wrong? Like, if you haven't got a diamond in his.
I think you have to do this bet. You've almost got to go, well, I'm not playing my kings anymore. I'm just playing my opponent and whether he's got a diamond or not. If he's got one, he's going to call this bet or raise you. And if he's not, he's probably going to fold. So it's kind of like you're asking a question, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And the villain does call. So I'm like, okay, they got the flush. That's got to be
done and dusted.
Got to be spent with the hand. So we've got call. There's now just shy of 22 big blinds in the pot, and the river comes a 9 of hearts. Honestly, for all intent and purposes, it might as well be a brick. I can't imagine any hands. If that made a straight for you, who cares? Like, you must be losing anyway.
Yeah. I mean, if this guy's playing if the guy's holding a 7, but no diamonds, would you really be calling to try and complete your straight on a board that's got 4 diamonds on it? That would be pretty crazy calling from the villain here.
Exactly. It's
so
like,
I wouldn't be worried about the straight. It's the same. I just think it's a check down now. This is just a check. Hope he doesn't bet and.
Exactly.
I mean, he must have the diamond. He's called the turn. He's got to have a diamond, right? Surely.
Yeah, and that was my feeling. I'll do exactly that. I'm not committing any more pots. I am beaten in this hand. They check behind.
Oh, right.
And that tells me
diamond. Low diamond has he got?
Okay, checks behind. He's got a pair of 8s. 3 8s.
Oh. All right.
So not even top pair, not even second pair, no diamond in sight, no straight. Only, a 7 beats him. And he's got to this stage with,
I mean,
middle pair, no kicker.
I don't hate his play. I don't think I would do it myself. It's like he's just playing a condensed range. Oh, well, I've got, on the flop, I've got middle pair. He's calling in the hope that you're just bluffing with 2 overcards. You 3-bet, didn't you? Maybe he's thinking you've got something like ace, king, ace, queen. So maybe he's just, calling down, hoping you've got one of those hands and no diamond. I mean, it's quite bold, but I suppose you kept the betting low. And it certainly worked out in your favour because he's called thinking he might beat a couple. Basically he's playing his hand as a bluff catcher. And
bluff catching
he was bluff catching, and what's quite funny is that you were bluffing, but he's not called your bluff because you're not entirely bluffing. You've got the pair of kings. You've got a hand that beats the pair of 8s or even a pair of jacks. But with 4 diamonds on the board and a straight on the board,
like what bluffs is he beating? A 7 is a bluff in this place, surely.
I guess he's beating ace king, ace queen, which you would 3-bet with in the way he did, I would say. Obviously, just with no diamonds. So I mean, there's a few combos of that. I don't think it's the best play from him. He obviously just had maybe a premonition. He just didn't believe you.
Yeah, and that could be it. It could be he's seen a few bits from me, and because this was the tournament that I said where it was the very early stages of the previous hand. So I think I mentioned I was playing much more wildly, much more erratic. So I was basically 46% voluntary in the pot. I had c-bet 100% of the flops that I'd seen, but then people were folding to that, so it was working. I maintained a decent stack at that point, so I weren't too worried. I was reacting to the table, and it had done me well at that point, so I didn't care that my stats were all over the place. They sorted themselves out once we got deep. Cool. The only thing I really wanted to see in this hand is what we've established of, was there some kind of superb thin value bluff catching, should I say, hand that the villain was taking, where my actions were so obviously lies that they felt they had enough value with a middle pair, with no kicker, with like the thing that I felt when I saw that was that even my worst bluffs are probably Queen Jack, Ace Jack, King Jack. Like I can't see me getting to that stage, and
No,
maybe could you?
if I'm honest, I don't actually think the villain played it badly. I'm not sure I would have bothered to call in and probably just given up. But your bet sizing kind of look on the flop. You know, you bet an amount that he was able to call with middle pair. You know, and yeah, there are 3 diamonds on there, but when you bet the turn as well, you are then playing a polarized range. You've either got something or you're bluffing. Although that's really actually it's not as straightforward as that. That's quite confusing because there are 4 diamonds. You have got something, but you just haven't got a flush, which is very easy to have on this board. So this is a bit of to be honest, this is a bit of territory I'm not familiar with really. This is, you know, are you polarized in your range by betting there? Like I guess you're either, it's like at that point you're either playing because you've got a diamond or betting because you haven't got a diamond but you're hoping he hasn't. So it's either a bluff or a value bet with a flush. But what I guess you're doing is it's could be considered a bluff, but it's a bluff that then beats. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's
the way I'd look at it is it's such a filthy board on a flop on the turn that your bluff to value ratio means that you've got so many value hands. If you imagine any flush at this point, it wouldn't necessarily be the case, but if you imagine any flush at this point is value, there's so many of them hands that your bluffs can be made up of actually really strong hands as well. Does that make sense? Like so your value, something like, I don't know, A6 is a bluff in this position because it's got a vague little amount of showdown value, but it's been beaten by all of your value hands as well. Like if you want to get value from all of them, so you would also put in strong bluffing hands. Like kings is a bluffing hand in this situation. You wouldn't be trying to bluff with some random, you know, what you're looking at, 7 deuce offsuit, like, because it's just got so little value against this board, whereas at least my kings beats every undiamond pair that's out there. So that's actually a really good bluff, but it loses to huge amounts of hands. Does that make sense? So my bluffs should be strong, and that supports me betting because there's so many hands. I can't be betting big because there's no polarization. My range is linear almost, because a diamond appears at every stage of every offsuit hand, every suited hand, every pair all will also have a diamond, apart from 8s, jacks, 6s and 5s. And on that flop you're also playing your sets as probably a bluff. So your bluffs are good, your bluffs are strong. So 8-3 is, you've got not even got a kicker to back you up on that. Like, that is, I can't see where that would ever be a bluff catcher. Like, what bluffs are you catching? What bad hands am I playing? Like, am I really getting to two barrels, albeit for small bets? Which, I mean, if I'm facing that kind of bet, I'd have to feel that that's what a value bet would be. Like, there's no attempt to knock someone off the hand or get a better hand to fold, because I'm not achieving that with that bet. So I'm doing that with all of my value hands. And that was my feeling, that if I had value hands, if I had the diamonds, I would always be betting small, because I'm out of position. I kind of need to do everything I can to inflate the pot. So I'm going to bet the smallest amount, hoping that gets calls or even encourages them to raise over the top. But not betting and hoping that the villain bets at me is too risky, because there's every chance that they've also got an ace, but mine might beat them. So if I want to get value for my best hands, I need to bet in the same way with my best bluffs, because that also looks like I might have a value hand, so they're more likely to fold against my bluffs. That's my feeling. Whether that's right, it feels joined up in my mind, so I'm quite confident, but I'm not sure if that's anything close to what the GTO might say overbet in this position. There is one tiny little thing as well. I was also conscious that when there's 4 diamonds out there, it does make it a little bit harder for them to have. No, that was it. Sorry, ignore that. So I can't remember whose theorem it is, but if there's 4 to a flush out there and you get checked to, you bet 100% of the time. And I was conscious that I couldn't check the turn because no one checks that turn if they've got a diamond. So you bet with absolutely 100% of your hand, because the chances of someone checking to you on that monotone turn is almost none if you haven't got the diamond. But the fact that I did bet, continued to bet, and it was exactly the same percent of the pot that the previous street was, I just couldn't imagine what else you'd call it with. As I said, I'd abandon the hand if they'd have bet one big blind. Like, I genuinely mean, with absolute, it sounds like I'm making it up, but if they'd have bet one big blind, I probably would have folded. What's the point in risking one more big blind? I was that certain I've lost this hand.
Wow.
Good, I couldn't see anything else getting there. They've not even tried to bluff me. They've not tried anything.
No, I mean, he's played his pair of eights there as a pure bluff catcher. He's just assuming that you don't have any diamond, that you've not got a pocket pair. He's literally playing in the hope that you've got ace king or ace queen with no diamonds. That's it. And he's just hoping you purely bluff the flop, continue bluffing on the turn. That's yeah. And when it works, he's like a hero, isn't he? Everyone says that. That's a hero call. You've well, it's not a hero call because it's only small bets, but you would think, wow, yeah, he's done well there.
Yeah, he's not even going after my bounty. You know what I mean? It's
anyway. It's just Anyway, yeah, no, great hand. It's definitely given me one to think about. I'm racking my brain even now, like trying to work out what is it in that situation. What is your hand? Are you bluffing? You're hoping. If he's got a diamond, he's calling it all day long. So I suppose you're representing a big diamond because you're putting in an amount that's making it really tempting for him to call with anything, and you just got to hope that he doesn't. But yeah, okay.
I mean, that's the only reasoning that I can think of, and it's exactly what you said. The whole point of me doing this little bet was to make it look like, come on, it's such a small bet, you've got to call. Even with all the diamonds out there, you've got to call. And I shouldn't then be surprised when someone does kind of call. It's like, that's just what I was hoping for. Okay, it's about 30 hands below what I thought the bottom of their range would be. Well, it's probably 100 hands, but that's what I was doing it for. Like, I can't expect to bet that small and get folds, I guess. But
yeah.
Anyhow.
Yeah, it's definitely. I'm going to take it away. I'm taking that one away, and I'm going to have a little think about this hand, because, like, my thoughts just then when you saying was like, well, maybe on the river, the bet actually should have been bigger, and more polarized. Like, if it had been more like 3/4 pot or even pot, then he may well have been like, this is either a complete bluff. He's doing this with the worst of his hands. He's complete air, ace king, ace queen, or he's got a big flush. And when it's the opposite ends like that, suddenly your eight is that condensed that beats the bluffs and loses the value, and it makes it a bit more of a, all right, I could have him here because this looks like it could be a bluff.
Yeah.
But I suppose the bet size you did, it doesn't polarize it so much. It almost, I don't know. What were you trying to achieve there? Just trying to get him to fold if he didn't have a diamond, basically.
Oh no, like I wanted to represent a linear range, but I also knew the information that it would yield from the villain. Well, I say I knew, I got it wrong, but that was what I wanted to do. Like if I'm repping a spot at this stage, I would be able to read the villain's actions enough to know where they're at. Like even though we kind of established they'd have a diamonds by the river, we immediately said, well, it's a tiny diamond. Do you know what I mean? It's something that genuine thin value. You know what I mean? If you got a two of diamonds, that would be what I'd say is a bluff catch almost. But would you still not try to get a bit thin value when it's checked to you? Maybe not.
I guess. Yeah, my question is though, like, what was you hoping for? Was when you were betting with your kings on the river? What was you?
Oh,
Was you
I didn't
hoping...
bet on the river just to say we check. It was
Oh,
my last
sorry.
bet
Yeah,
was the
of
term.
course. Yeah,
So,
sorry. Yeah. Oh,
check.
confused.
Like I'd
No,
given
of
up at that
course.
point.
You've given up. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, one of those hands. He's just hope. You know, he feels like he's got some showdown value, and I suppose he has. You know, there's a chance that you're bluffing with worse than a pair of eights, and he's just calling down because it was a small bet. I suppose it's not the worst call in the world on the turn. I probably wouldn't have done it myself. I probably just got out of there, but yeah, it worked out good for you.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay. All right. Anything else before we wrap up?
No, other than now I've got 20th place out of 2,500. I feel like I'm gonna walk the World Series. I think we're ready.
Yeah, mate. It's a good feeling, isn't it? Like it's kind of like, all right, I can get there.
Yeah.
Like it's so good to get far. I mean, I can't boast that I've placed in such a big tournament like that. That's massive.
Yeah. Do you know what's really weird? And I'm sure it's not just exclusive to UK players, where because most of our decent tournaments are so late at night, there's a double whammy of, I did really well there. I did some good cash. My bankroll was proper. My ROI and my bankroll were doing terribly, and that was like, all right, it's looking a little healthier now. And I get to go to bed. I'm ready for bed about an hour ago, but I'm not
Yeah.
tired because I'm overstimulated. But
Yeah.
let's hit the sack.
When the meditation helps, isn't it? Listen to one of the wind downs, Headspace, baby. That stuff's great.
Yeah, mate. Love it.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Tain. Some great hands there, mate.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for going through them.
All right, and thanks to the listeners. We'll see you again next week.
Take it easy. Cheers, everyone.
Bye.